we'll continue. So stanza 2 is preparing to die. Within contemplating the meaningfulness and difficulty of finding this life support, wishing to extract its essence. So verse 2 and 3 are about the importance of valuing this life and opportunity. Okay, so let's read the verse together. May we extract the meaningful essence of this life's support without being distracted by the senseless affairs of this life, since this good foundation, hard to gain and easy to disintegrate, presents an opportunity of choice between profit and loss, comfort and misery. So the first point here is realize the value of the human body with which you have been endowed. So my teacher, Venerable Geshe Geltsen, would say, we already have the good result. You know, we're so focused on something out there and later on and in the future. And he says, you have the good result. Use it. You know, we're so kind of not recognizing how wonderful this human life is now. So that was always it really kind of stop you in your tracks from this hankering, you know, this kind of hankering, like what else is there? You know, it's like the little 7-year-old in the plane with me yesterday. 25 more minutes, I want it to be 1 minute. Aren't we there yet? So His Holiness the Dalai Lama says, out of desire for good things of this life, food, clothes, conversation, then we take out high interest loans, compete and compare, look down on others, and engage in court proceedings. Then, he says, money becomes more attractive than study. If a page falls out of a tablet, maybe we'll pick it up. But if $1 falls out of our pocket, no, we get it right away. Says these are some of the problems of not considering the advantages and disadvantages of, you know, really thinking about death and permanence and looking at our values. Because if we don't value this life, we engage in risky behavior. We do things that really can compromise our lives, and we harm others through our actions of body, speech, and mind. And we don't even think twice about it a lot of times. So, you know, that's why these contemplations are really, really important for us to reflect upon and to think about what we're doing. So I wanted to read a Devadatta Sutra, which is a sutra that the Buddha had said while he was staying in Sravasti. Have you studied the sutras that the Buddha taught at Sravasti? Oh, okay. So I was checking it out, and at Sravasti, which is a beautiful place, you can Google it online and see these beautiful photographs of Sravasti in India, which was a monastery and a park that was gifted to the Buddha. So there were 811 sutras taught there. No? And sutra, the derivation of sutra is also for suture, you know, like a thread that continues. So to think about the sutras that sew together and help us to comprehend things. And the Buddha spent 25 rainy seasons there at Sravasti. 25, that's 25 years, no? more than any other place he stayed after his enlightenment. Yeah? He attained enlightenment and he taught for, was it 45 years? 45 years after that, and 25 of them were spent at Sravasti. So pretty remarkable that His Holiness gave the name Sravasti. Now, so the Buddha spent 20 rainy seasons elsewhere, and not just at one place, but several other places. So 25, that's more than half of any other combination. So it was also here that he gave the largest amount of discourses and instructions. So this sutra is called the Devadutta Sutra, which means the divine messengers. And I actually emailed Bhikkhu Bodhi about this because I thought the divine messengers were something else. Anyway, thus I have heard, on one occasion the Blessed One was living at Sravasti in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park. There he addressed the bhikshus, saying, "Bhikshus," which are the monks, the fully ordained monks, "Venerable Sir," they replied. And the Blessed One said this. So he kind of goes on and he talks about the divine messengers. And the first one is, let me see. Okay. An infant born, so birth. Birth talks about a messenger of birth. The second messenger is an old man or a woman. The third messenger is aging. I'm sorry. Aging was the second one. The third one is sickness. The fourth one is someone who engages in stealing and other negative actions in this particular sutra. And he just talks about how that becomes a messenger to inform you. So the fifth messenger, he says, "Good man, did you not see the fifth divine messenger to appear in the world?" He says, "I did not, Venerable Sir." And so this is a conversation between a man and Yama, King Yama. So King Yama says, "Good man, have you never seen in the world a man or a woman 1 day dead, 2 days dead, 3 days dead, bloated, livid, and oozing with matter?" He says, "I have, Venerable Sir." Then King Yama says, "Good man, did it never occur to you, an intelligent and mature man, that I too am subject to death? I am not exempt from death. Surely I had better do good by my body, speech, and mind." He says, "I was unable, Venerable Sir. I was negligent." Then King Yama says, "Good man, through negligence you have failed to do good by body, speech, and mind. Certainly they will deal with you according to your negligence. But this evil action of yours was not done by your mother or father, or by your brother or sister, or by your friends or companions, or by your kinsmen or relatives, or by recluses and Brahmins, or by gods. This evil action was done by you yourself, and you yourself will experience its result." So he's talking about each one of these messengers that comes through our life and looking at how and where it is where we are negligent. And he's saying that negligence wasn't done by our parents and relatives and friends and anybody else. It was done by us. We're the ones that have to take hold of this and look at it. So what got me about this one is how much time in our life, we have all these stages we go through in the game of life, but how often we procrastinate in the way of putting things off and putting our lack of understanding or lack of capacity onto others. And we blame our parents, we blame our siblings, we blame everything else, except, really looking at taking hold of it ourselves. So I wanted to ask you, when is it that you put things off and waste your time? We engage in forgetfulness, engaging in negative action, blame and inaction, giving our power away. I'm still blaming my mom. And she passed away in 71.
I know I do it when I'm stressed or tired.
What do you do?
I procrastinate on study.
Okay.
I procrastinate on mindfulness. I procrastinate on all of it.
Mm-hmm. And you?
I'm lazy.
And that's how you put things off. Yeah. So, anybody else?
I do, but doing everything. Not saying my priorities correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have time for X, Y, Z, but I have time for ABC.
Yeah. Tarpa?
Well, I was thinking about the sense that I need sometimes when I'm sitting on the cushion. I spend a lot of time in the meditation hall. And I think some of those fall under this category of how I'm using my time.
When we're sitting. Yeah. That's a really big one. Yeah.
Not making effort sometimes to make the mind more usable.
Right.
You can really do it.
Yeah. And then the bell rings. It's really true. And His Holiness is saying, it's because we don't have really a correct understanding of impermanence. And, I watch the way Venerable Chodron works. She doesn't waste a moment. And you live with her, it's like... It's really quite remarkable how personally we can find ways to just kind of check out a little bit, and how do we correct ourselves a little bit more, and absolutely we need rest and relaxation and some downtime and some spacious time as well. But then that gets bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's this story about Carlos Castaneda is walking with Don Juan, right? And he's talking about death and how it's all around us. And then Carlos totally gets it, right? Totally gets it, and he's freaked out. And Don Juan's bending over, tying his shoelaces, and there's like this huge boulder. They're walking through a canyon. He's saying, that how can you tie your shoelaces when that boulder could fall on us any second? And Don Juan says, I tie my shoelaces impeccably. And so much of what we do in our space out time is just that. It's spacing out. It's not really constructive. It's not really really helping us relax sometimes. It's just spacing out. So, it's like, how can we utilize it in a way a lot more constructively? That it's really recharging us, totally recharging us, so that it's something potent, no? Mm-hmm.
I think the dulling actually is part of the symptoms of the amnesia that Venerable Tarka was talking about. That it doesn't nourish and energize, it actually puts me into a state of indifference, and there's no presence. There's no presence of mind. There's no interest in moving forward. I forget what I'm doing, literally, sometimes, and more subtly other times.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I get that one too, but then I was just thinking, there's that other side where it's so intense that you check out because it's intense. Yeah? Interesting. Were you going to say something, Deborah?
I was thinking that we're habituated ignorance, actually. And so, I don't know what Tenzin was saying, that we kind of, it's one reason why we like to go to sleep. It's a big, ignorant checkout. So I think sometimes that happens during the day. I think it's kind of the basis of it.
Yeah. Huh. Okay. So, realize the value of the human body which you have been endowed, for it is the result of many good causes. I wanted to ask the man in the back there, you had asked about the intermediate state. You had asked about the intermediate state, and so I was kind of mentioning about the consciousness and also cause and effect and things like that. What have you been coming up with? How have you been ruminating on that?
Well, that from a Buddhist perspective, where I am in my practice at this point, it's probably more important to concentrate on this life and the cause and effects that I'm creating now that are going to carry over into the intermediate state. And probably my question was more from an intellectual point of view, and did not really come from a spiritual point of view.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So cause and effect also for later on in our life.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, besides the intermediate state. Yeah. Intermediate state and beyond. Okay, so let's see. So in that Devadutta Sutra, he says, good man, did it never occur to you, an intelligent and mature man, that I too am subject to death, I'm not exempt from death? And he's just sharing these things where he's saying this evil action of yours was not done by your mother or father and other beings. So when he's saying this evil action of yours was not done by your parents, your brother and sister, your friends or companions, or your kinsmen and relative, what feeling arises for you in the statement, You have failed to do good by your body, speech, and mind. What kind of feeling comes up for you there?
Fear and the call to wake up.
I want to make it up.
Uh-huh. fear and remorse and making it up.
Regret.
Mm-hmm. I get really reactive. You know? So when you have a feeling of being shamed or reprimanded and envisioning doing good bodhisattva work, but feeling shame, low self-esteem, how do you get back on the saddle? Because you're being reprimanded by Yama here. You know?
I think it's parsing that feeling, saying that, realizing that these feelings of inadequacy or helplessness or having failed, again, failure, feeling of failure, because that's all part of the negative mind. Those are still part of the negative. You're still in the negative. You're still doing negative. I'm still doing negative action by thinking those ways, and because I'm not being the bodhisattva, because the bodhisattva can't be a victim. And so as long as I'm still acting like a victim, then I'm not doing, I'm still doing the negative action.
Yeah. Oh, that's an interesting way, yeah. Mm-hmm.
For me, the metta practice has been really helpful. I went through a really painful divorce, and it was working without my ex-husband that I could kind of get out of my anger. And then yesterday before I came, I found out a friend of mine has to have part of her nose removed from skin cancer. So I've been doing metta for her. That's really helpful.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Mm-hmm.
To me, it's also saying, don't use as an excuse what you haven't done yet, as an excuse to not do it. Because you say, oh, I didn't do it, so, oh well, it's hopeless. So to not fall into like self-pity and like, oh, I can't do it. So kind of using this as a way to say, you haven't done it, but you can now. So actually you could use it as encouragement.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
To forgive myself for it and not do it again, and have remorse and
Yeah.
decide.
Right.
Really try to stay on the path.
Uh-huh.
So I just sort of feel like if Yama was talking to me like that, I would just probably feel a little angry back and say, but I have Buddha nature, and it's indelible, and it's not leaving, and I have this basic goodness. So it kind of ties with what Cheryl says, that there's going to be a chance to do this. I haven't done it. Yeah, I made a mistake. I'll own up to it. But that doesn't destroy me and throw me on the floor and worthless.
Yeah.
Something kind of rises up a little. I don't know if it's a false pride or authentic. Maybe it's mixed. Yeah, something.
Yeah, interesting. There's so many different interpretations of it, because that one kind of pushed my buttons too when I read it. No? Uh-huh.
It seems to me like the case for most of us is kind of this. So, like, sometimes Yama could definitely be saying that to me, and then other times I'm more focused and motivated and working hard, and then I'm not, and then I am.
Yeah, it's like we're with the program until we're not. And how do we get back to that, It's rather than taking it so personally and falling off the horse, so to speak. Yeah. What did you say, Tarpala, about what children said with ignorance? And
She basically was saying we choose ignorance sometimes. you're saying there is that I have struggled with doubt, and I put this in that class. I just finally say, when I hear myself talking to myself this way, I really try to become very aware of it and like, oh, there you are, looking at yourself again as if you're not able to, and you're thinking poorly of yourself. And it's like, I don't even want to identify with it anymore. It's like, oh, there's that thought again. I like to remove myself from it, not identify with those thoughts. It's just like, wow, there's that thought again. And that one always doesn't work. It always doesn't work. So what I say to myself is, when I fall down, the problem is not that I fell down, it's that I'm not getting up.
Yeah, right.
And we're going to try to recognize it for what it is and not...
We're going to fall down, yeah.
We're going to.
Yeah, we're going to fall down. But it is that hard part. Okay, yeah, let me get up and keep going. That we just pile on all this other garbage that keeps us kind of down.
But that's, I think, where the sense of integrity was what pulled me out of this.
Yeah.
You know, like, I value
Mm-hmm.
this path and trying to do this and respect myself for that and not pile on the self-criticism.
Right. And this is where the community helps, you know, and having good spiritual friends help you. Yeah.
And I think it's important to remember how many times you have gotten back up. So, you know, if that time that you just fell isn't the only time, it's not the only thing not the only moment.
Right.
How many times have we gotten back up and gotten back to studying and being mindful and making the effort? And then, you know.
Right. We have to remember. Go ahead.
And even little babies learning to walk fall down, and they don't put themselves down for falling down. They get up and try again. They come on their knees.
Yeah, that's a big teaching. We really do layer on a lot of stuff. Okay, so let's look at one of these here. Since this precious human life can be used in powerfully beneficial or powerfully destructive ways, and is itself most fragile, make good use of it now. No, make good use of it now. It's true, it is very fragile, and we forget how fragile, you know, there's that fragility part and then the resilience part. And to see, okay, yeah, but there is a definite time here, and, you know, our clocks are ticking. Even though we have the best of conditions now, especially being born or being able to live in the U.S. where we have so much freedom, right? To be able to use our lives really well, really use our lives well. So think about how you have, you know, what is the livelihood you can work with now in using your life well, thinking of the bodhisattva actions, because, you know, there's all this tedium of living and keeping our life strong and well, so much tedium, and then when it's done, it's done. But while we're here, you know, what do we do? How do we use it well? How do we make good conditions for while we're here? So, so one of the things, you know, we talked a little bit about it this morning about the conditions of aging, the lack of care. You know, the medical model in care has increased so much, yet the spiritual care is really lacking. The boomers are increasing so much. Look at obesity in the way of what are our health conditions today in the world, and pollution and things like this. So much. So looking at livelihood and what to do, I wanted to work with this other exercise. So the U.S. owes $15.4 trillion we're in debt. And there's a part of consumerism that really drives the continuing excellence of product, isn't it? So here's this, I was actually calculating this, but I couldn't do the highest parts. Okay, so the U.S. owes $15.4 trillion. And if we did that equation of 15.4 trillion, you know, what's a trillion? It's just this really big number, right? It's a really big number. So if we made 15.4 trillion in numbers of seconds, how many days does 1 million seconds cover? Just take a wild guess. One million seconds equals how many days, months? We're trying to get to trillion, but we're working with million. Million's doable, huh? There might be some millionaires in here. It's 12 days. 1 million seconds is 12 days. 12 days. Okay, so how long is 1 billion?
Just under 40.
32 years. 32 years. So that's when President Carter was president. 1980. Yeah, 32 years ago is 1 billion seconds. Okay, so it's just to kind of look at our debt, right? So how many is a trillion seconds?
Is a trillion a million billions, or what is a trillion?
Like having
How many zeros is that? A million is like, 1,000. What is a trillion made up of?
So a billion, 1,000 billion, a trillion is 1,000 billion.
1,000 billions. Okay? So we're just looking at seconds to kind of get a sense of our debt.
So you've done 3 decades, 3 centuries, 3,200.
It's just under 32,000 years. Yeah, it's just under 32,000 years. Okay, so that means Homo sapiens was just forming. For those, that's for you, those of you who believe in evolution. You know, when I first brought this up, I was at a place with a lot of Christians that believe in the creation theory, so. So it's actually 31,688 years equals 1 trillion. Okay, that's 1 trillion seconds. So the U.S. owes 15.4 trillion.
Yeah, but you're not accounting for inflation.
So
15 times 32,000.
okay, so here's another calculation. If you made $1 million every day since the time of Jesus Christ's birth, every day to 2012, it's not even close to 1 trillion.
And 12 years ago, our debt was zero.
So you would need another 1,000 years to make 1 trillion. So, okay, so what was it? There was something really powerful here. So $2.2 trillion. Okay, I guess, again, it's just stretching us to look at our right livelihood aspect. $2.2 trillion debt was accumulated since President George Washington to Reagan. 2.2 trillion. That was 200 years. Yeah. And in the last 24 months, 2 years, from August 2009 to August 2011, we accumulated 2.95 trillion. So, that's not counting Medicare and Social Security,
That's just the debt.
where a fraction of us are heading really quickly, or if we're not already in there.
So this is the debt we owe to other countries?
This is, would you say it's to other countries or within?
Or is it individual debt as citizens?
Oh, no, national. That's the government debt.
Treasury securities are owned by U.S. citizens, U.S. corporations, and other countries.
It's a really challenging thing, but to look at the bigger perspective of the world that we live in, and really saying, how do I conduct myself? How do I live in the world? But how do I also take care of myself? And what can I do that's conscientiously appropriate in engaging in the livelihood that I do? No? And for me, hospice work. I go home every day inspired by the work that I do because of the people that I meet and what I do. But, at the same time, it's like, okay, can I pay the bills this month? And so there's the juxtaposition of living in the world too. We have to take care of living in the world, and so there are a lot of people making incredible amounts of money. I went on when I lived in Colorado. I got $200 a month. That was my stipend, and one of my cancer meds was $57 a month. So I have to kind of try to live on the rest of it. And sometimes it's really hard. So then I got invited on a speaking tour one year. I gave 4 talks and was flown to 4 different countries. I flew business class and got $27,000 for 4 talks. And I was a peon in the game. It's just quite the polarity of things is like never before. I think that's one thing that's really changed. So would you say the rich are getting richer, the middle class is shrinking, and the poor are getting the poor class is getting greater?
I would. I mean, I have a good education, and I barely get through every month. And there are months where I'm not sure the cat's an eye on every week, so
You were going to say something?
I don't really know what to say. I'm not clear why we're talking about this.
since this precious human life can be used in powerfully beneficial and destructive ways, and is itself most fragile, make good use of it now. You know, and of course, we can be just within our own little realms, protected and safe until things really tear away at it. And a lot of people have lost what was supporting them before, you know? And so that's why I brought it up. I brought it up because there are a lot of people in the U.S., which was where a lot of people wanted to come to, because it was a place of opportunity, and we've lost that in our lifetime. You know, I mean, there's some people doing super well, but you know, for the majority of people, it's really a challenge, and that's why I brought it up, because I think that we you know, I can really focus on death, the impermanence, and end of life, but it's also looking at how are we living our lives, and what is our livelihood that can really speak to the conditions that we're in. You know, if we can't do it, you know what was it? If you can do something about it, why be upset? And if you can't do anything about it, why be upset? But it doesn't mean putting your head in the sand. And I think it's really important for us to really stretch ourselves with our practice and not have it be polarized. Because I do see a lot of times spiritual practitioners, you know, having their spiritual life here and then their worldly life here, and yeah. Yeah. You had a comment?
I didn't want to, I was in the Peace Corps. I was in Senegal, West Africa. It was a village of 300 people, and they didn't have much, but they didn't feel poor to me. And so that was very powerful. You know, it's like the spirit and the community and the love and the dignity. It really gave me a different perspective on what's happiness.
Yeah.
For the most part, I was much happier than what I've experienced here. And I think, in a way, it's been a really tough time economically, and for me included. I also sense, though, there's kind of a ray of light as people are beginning to question what is stuff. What is, you know, that I think maybe it's not, I'm seeing more people questioning and beginning to wake up a bit.
Yeah, I think so too. And I've stayed in Nepal. I've lived quite a few years in India, and it's true. You know, people make do with what they have. But and here in the West, we kind of lived without worry for a long time regarding. I mean, of course, there are different things that were causing our worry, but we have really shifted and shifted gears in our perspectives on things. So, yeah.
I think it kind of ties in quite well because, like, I think if you're living a life where you made a lot of money and then you don't, I think it's kind of the death of an old life. And I think you can feel that you failed to.
Yeah, could be. And, you know, because a lot of people have lost their jobs, they're also not coming to the hospital for medical procedures because they don't have the insurance or they don't have the money to cover it. So the hospitals also are really suffering, and which makes it more critical a lot of times because they only come to the hospital when they're in crisis or something's really gone bad. So, you know, it does affect us in different ways, and we haven't had to, you know, our hospital's building a new wing, but it was planned before the downturn, and they're saying we got to keep going with it. and yet there's been a hiring freeze for over 2 years. You know, our pay raise has been, you know, just like 1%, or I forget what it is. Anyway, pennies. And so, yeah, it's affecting even the service communities. Okay, so here, number 3, under stanza 2. Physical happiness is just an occasional balance of the elements in the body, not a deep harmony. Understand the temporary for what it is. Okay, so this is where we'll get more into the elements too, but in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, they consider, you know, when they look at the elements of the body, they think of the earth, water, fire, air, and space. You know, basically the 4 elements. And you think of the earth element as something hard, like your bones. Earth, water, the fluids, so your marrow, blood, the water. Fire, the temperature in your body, and earth, water, fire. Wind is your breath. So you think about those. If any of them go a little bit out of balance, you're sick. Just a little bit out of balance and you're sick. Now, our temperature, if it goes up a few degrees, we're having a fever, or it drops too little. Any of these things. So, so the comment His Holiness makes is, physical happiness is an occasional balance of the elements, and that too is not enduring. Now, there's a Tibetan doctor who says, if physical health is an accident. Yeah, you think of those things all trying to balance together. And yet we live long, you know. We have the capacity to live 100 and even a little more. So to look at the balance in this, and so those are the physical elements, and then the elements of consciousness, and they're not physical elements, right? The qualities of consciousness. So so I bring that part up because that's what we'll be going into in the next ones. So here, number 4, a tamed mind makes you peaceful, relaxed, and happy, whereas if your mind is not peaceful and tamed, no matter how wonderful your external circumstances, you will be beset by frights and worries. Realize that the root of your own happiness and welfare rests with a peaceful and tamed mind. It is also a great benefit to those around you. Okay, so here we work with looking at the qualities of taming our mind and really looking at the emotions. And like some of my teachers would say, you think about how when you're angry, that even if you're wearing your favorite clothes, you don't look good. Right? and how the emotions, and you don't feel good, and you don't, you know, it's an upsetting mental state. So look at what happens also. Our face gets red, our temperature goes up, we watch your blood pressure, all of these things go on. And that's just on the physical side. But think about it when we face stages at the end of life, you know, when things are happening and we face anger or grasping, attachment to our possessions, not wanting to leave our family, etc. You know, to watch how do we balance our emotions at this point when we get the news that this is the end. You know? Okay, so so this one is preparing to die. Right.
What about people who don't have any religion? I'm asking myself, how can they find this peaceful, relaxed mind when their whole life they're attracted by circumstances like by the attachment of families, by material possessions, and so on. And then they're facing death, and what then? How can somebody like you, how are you helping them to get a peaceful mind?
Yeah. A lot of times when I see people, it's in their last days. And so what can you do, right? And someone was saying the metta meditation, was that you? Yeah. The metta meditation is so powerful, and also really to coach them to rejoice, to think of love, and saying, your body is collapsing, your body is falling apart. What can you do now is really, because there's the two, it's like your body can be collapsing and you're still lucid. Or your mind can be in dementia, but your body's functioning, So there are these two different things going on. And for some people, they're they have incredible amounts of sedation, yet they're still lucid, just to try to handle their pain. So to tell them, your point of power then is really to send blessings to your family, to send good wishes, to give them love, to tell them you love them. And so this is how I often coach them, because there isn't that much more to do at the end. You want to comfort them, you don't want them to get more anxious. So the loving kindness is really, really helpful. A problem which is pretty chronic is that the family around them are really grasping and crying and not wanting them to leave and touching them. And in the Tibetan traditions, again, I'm not to impose my stuff on them. A lot of them are touching the body and, come back and doing these things. But again, I have to remember that that's the philosophical view I was trained in. That you don't touch the body so much, you allow the person to relax. So I really don't impose that, especially, for someone who's losing a loved one, to tell them don't touch is really, really challenging. And there's also a very strong program called, it's something like, that no one dies alone. Yeah, to always have somebody there, that no one dies alone. And in a lot of ways, I would prefer to be alone, but that could be my bravado while I'm not sick. And perhaps at the time when I'm really ill, I would love my Dharma friends to be close to me, to coach me. But again, when you think that most people are dying in a hospital situation with bells and alarms and pagers and all kinds of things going on, it's a very difficult situation. And also, it's like televisions. Televisions are going on everywhere. A lot of people in nursing homes, everywhere. It's the item that's in every room, everywhere, is just these soap operas. And, I come in to see people, and there's this one Catholic woman I love to go visit, and we say prayers together, and I read scripture. But don't interfere with her game shows and stuff, It's like, I have to wait. Yeah, I have to wait till the break. Again, it's not imposing yourself on them because it would only irritate them. Yeah? Anybody else? The person who works in hospice? Right here? Oh yeah. Yeah, what do you do?
That is a new experience for me.
Yeah. Getting accustomed, acclimated.
Yeah, just taking cues from the client.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to talk about politics.
Yeah, right.
Just mostly listening.
Listening is really a key factor in that. And also for dementia patients, a lot of times what works really well is saying or having them speak about things from their early childhood, or saying the Lord's Prayer if they're Christian is really powerful. Sometimes they can barely speak, but they can say the Lord's Prayer with you. So to go to those places where there's strong early connections is really helpful as well. Good.
I had the opportunity to ask Yang Rinpoche a few years ago what to do for my elderly relatives who didn't have a spiritual belief, really. And he said, just reminding them about all the good things they've done in their life. And so I think that's very good to find out.
Yeah.
And even if we don't know a person so well, we can probably put together things that, or you were kind to your family, and just pull things together, because most people, have that as their basis.
Right.
That's great advice.
Oh, it absolutely is. And to acknowledge the challenges too. Yeah, the one that I go with a lot are called the 4 things, also from Dr. Bayak, and also it's called in Hawaii, it's called Ho'oponopono. Have you heard of that? Who's the one from Hawaii? Yeah? It's Ho'oponopono. So I shared it with people last year, but we could go through it really quickly. And so why don't we do that? It's just 4 sentences, 11 words. So you could think of someone in your life that's very dear to you, and then we'll go through these 4 sentences. So call that person to mind. So you could also think, perhaps it's close to your end of life, and you would like to clear your heart, or it's someone you know who's getting close to the end of life as well. So call someone to mind, and if you don't have someone particularly, you could think of a parent or a child. And just take a couple breaths and relax. And the first line is, "Please forgive me." You might think of the person you are writing the ethical will for. And imagine being with that person and just saying, "Please forgive me for anything I may have said or done that diminished our friendship, that challenged us, that hurt you. Please forgive me." And imagine, so be sincere in your own heart and imagine that they really get your message. imagine them forgiving you. And the second sentence is, I forgive you. I forgive you for anything you may have said or done that hurt me, that challenged our friendship, that diminished my view of you. I forgive you. And the third sentence is, thank you. Thank you for being in my life, for hanging in there with me through the ups and downs, for the gifts of our friendship. Thank you. And the fourth sentence is, I love you. So sometimes people say, oh, they know that. But to be able to say it and receive it is really, really powerful. Okay, so you can come out of that contemplation. So those are the four things, and a lot of times when I work with people in hospice, those four sentences are really, they open up spaces that were stuck for a long time, or it just enhances what they've already worked on over the years. It's really powerful. Tenderness opens up for people. And a lot of times people working with the hospice families, they can be very standoffish, yet those four sentences just help open it up, and they become very tender, you know, just stroking their hair and saying things that they hadn't said before. It's really lovely. Anyone want to share what came up for you?
The movie.
A movie?
The father was a son. The father was always very angry and couldn't open his heart for his son. And then he was dying. And in the end, I think he made something like this many years ago. And he asked his son, forgive me, and I forgive you. And then I love you. And then he kissed his son the first time in his life. His son never experienced it. And then he died.
Yeah. Right. And how wonderful to just not to have that be clear, you know, in your life, with the dying patient, with the dying loved one, that your heart is clear. Okay. Anybody else?
I was picturing saying it to my husband every night in bed. It seems like what a good thing to do.
I just worked with a woman, she passed away on Thursday. Thursday, her son finally graduated from UCLA after 7 years. And I did the four things with her. And she just looked at her husband and said, all those decades where we really didn't talk that much, says, why didn't we do this more? No, why didn't we do this more? And it was a week before her son was graduating. She's going, is the graduation tomorrow? No. And so I said, why don't you write your own graduation your own diploma for your son? You know, so we're working on that. But she died Thursday night. No, and the son decided not to go to his graduation ceremony. He didn't want to miss a second with his mother. No, but it's true. You know, it's that part. Why don't we speak more and really share that love more, rather than just assume that it's there? Well, yeah, it's really something.
Can I add something personal too? I don't think only on movies, but when my mother died and I was at home and I had a cold, I was in Japan, and I know that her health situation wasn't very good and she was sick for many, many years. And then she couldn't speak clearly, and then I realized now it's probably time, and I asked her if I should come, and then she said yes. So and then I knew, and then I was on the plane and I had a feeling, something like great happiness. I couldn't explain it by myself, and then I landed, and my brother picked me up from the airport, and he said she died 2 hours ago, and it was the moment when I was on my flight. And then when I, you know, when we went through it, I thought maybe she was in a hospice, and maybe she went through it because we had not a very good relationship, and it would be kind of healing to do it, to think of myself, maybe she had a good relationship with people who supported her in this hospice. So I don't know it actually, but it would be nice to know or to imagine it would be like this, because maybe she has done it because this feeling of happiness, I couldn't explain it to myself. Maybe she was thinking then of me too, of the kids.
This happens so much too, you know, it's like that you get some kind of message and it's like, you know, it was them. Yeah.
We were experiencing, sharing, I guess, notes with Sally, and we had the same experience when we were present during somebody was just dying, like that, you know, kind of moment. There was a surge of joy. How do you, I guess, what's your experience and how do you explain that?
It would just be my own feeling about it. You know, there's nothing, I haven't gotten any technical scientific information. But maybe it's a release and communication. No? What did you get out of it?
It was very joyful, like just literally a second, and then just kind of ashamed that, oh, then I realized what's happening. And I was a child, teenager. Kind of, okay, this is death, so I was crying already. So, but it was very interesting.
I had an experience like that once. I was in a long-term relationship, and it was the moment it was breaking up. And for a brief moment, it was so joyful in my mind. It was a feeling of joy, and it was like the future was, everything was changing, it was unknown. It was really hard to put in words. And I guess it was just like change. I don't know what it was. And then the whole thing kind of closes in with all your thoughts about things. But just in that moment, it was, I don't know what that was actually either. But it's something big, like your whole world is shifting. And it was kind of exciting, you know, too. I don't know how to describe it. I never really understood it. But what I really looked at was what happened later then, with all the things that you do to yourself, what you're thinking about. like all the sorrow that we go through when things change.
Oh, right. Yeah.
All the,
yeah.
a lot of that's expectation that isn't so clear to me. I don't think it's so clear. Whereas I think that moment was actually very clear.
Unusual.
Yeah, I don't know what it was.
Yeah. Okay. So, shall we do one more? Stanza 4. Or stanza 3. Within mindfulness of impermanence and death, wishing to overcome attachment to cyclic existence. Okay, let's read that stanza together. May we realize that there is no time to waste, death being definite, but the time of death indefinite. What has gathered will separate. What has been accumulated will be consumed without residue. At the end of a rising comes descent. The finality of birth is death. Okay, so if you cultivate a sense of the uncertainty of the time of death, you will make better use of your time. You'll make better use of your time. So His Holiness says we're under the illusion of permanence. The illusion of permanence, and therefore we procrastinate. That's why we procrastinate. It says there's no certainty, but when we cultivate the awareness of death, you appreciate that you could die tonight. You could die tonight. So, they say it's like we go to sleep trusting that we're going to get up in the morning. Huh? But many people die in their sleep, and a lot of people actually want to die in their sleep. Huh? So we just kind of trust that we're going to wake up in the morning. They say that's one of the points to really recognize the dissolution of the elements, falling asleep. Yeah. So part of the contemplations that the Venerables have been going through, is everything we experience is impermanent, death is inevitable, and that we could die at any time. So those really work within the contemplation. Allow yourself to really get that emotionally, let it penetrate. So, and the purpose is so that it's going to happen to me. It is going to happen to me. So we keep saying, it's somebody else, it's not my time, etc. But reflect on others who have died. So, did you bring your photographs of 10 or 20 years ago? Mm-hmm. Yeah? Mm-hmm. No? Did some of you bring them? Are they here?
They're in my room.
They're not in the room. Okay. All right. So bring them, let's see, to tomorrow's session then. We'll work with them. Okay. Yeah. So, again, really looking at how can we overcome our attachment to cyclic existence? Because we grasp to this life, we just live in this place of denial and procrastination. So it's looking at how do we strike a balance in this between really holding that awareness and then realizing, to enjoy our lives too. So here's a comment by His Holiness. It's not to devalue, but to value things. Not to devalue, but to value things. When death actually comes, if you are not used to this practice, it will be very difficult to succeed in any beneficial reflection. Therefore, now is the time to practice and prepare while you are still happy and the circumstances of your life are in accord. Then, at the time of real need and pressure, there will be no worry. Can you imagine? You know, your dying state and there's no worry? You can? If when you think you have time, when you have time to think, hear, meditate, and ask questions, you do not make preparation, on the last day there'll be no time, and you will be without protection of refuge, with nothing left but regret and fear. You know, it's kind of like those hospice patients that know their prayers so well. You know, it's almost like the contemplation of the dissolution of the elements and really looking at the dissolution of consciousness as well, going into more and more subtle consciousness. If you prepare for that now, you familiarize yourself now with them, then when it's actually happening, you're going, oh, this is that ride right now, and to be able to go with it. And His Holiness says he practices dying 8 times a day. 8 times a day. Now, really looking at the dissolution of the elements so that you can be more alert and aware as you go through this. He says it is better long before that time to institute a continual practice of reflection on the process of death and the intermediate state between lives by imagining steps so that they are familiar. He said it's important so that you can achieve success with your greatest capacity. So really thinking, you know, it's like in this way too, you're kind of guiding your own self. You know, just as we prepare to go on retreat, or we prepare to go on a camping trip, you prepare and pack the things that you need, you know, the right food, the right gear, the right equipment, everything, you know, you prepare. And to think about what are we doing to prepare for our death? You know, what kind of preparation are you making? So this is the one that we'll continue to familiarize ourselves with here. So his last advice here on stanza 3 is to be frank. Yeah, be frank about facing your own death. We compliment each other about how good we look, even as we get older and older. And I've got this ache, I've got that problem, my heart, my leg. You look good, though. Okay, so let's just sit quietly and then I'll do the message back.